Hello and welcome to the Appeon 2016 product suite, a new feature called the Installable Web Application for Appeon web-based applications. In this tutorial, we're going to be using an existing PowerBuilder 12.6 native Win32 application. The deployment target for this tutorial is a .NET-based 64-bit Appeon server. However, the IWA feature will work on an Appeon J2EE or Java-based server as well. We're going to be using Appeon Developer's configuration tool, of course the Appeon Developer being a utility that can be called directly from the PowerBuilder IDE. In the example application, it utilizes an SQL Anywhere 64-bit database and database management system. Connectivity for IWA applications is provided through IIS, and on this tutorial I'm running it on Windows 10. We're going to utilize a local deployment model, which means PowerBuilder, the Appeon server, Appeon Developer, IIS, and the database management system are all running on the developer's PC. And through this, we're going to investigate the installable web application feature set in the new Appeon 2016 product. Just to give you some background, if you look at the left-hand side, we'll see that we're going to be running a standard Microsoft Windows client. And we have a new application called the IWA Runner. This application acts as a shell and a connectivity conduit to the Appeon server. Inside the Appeon server is the deployed Appeon web application, in this case running underneath the IIS web/application server. The IWA Runner will basically tap into the Appeon server and launch your application from the Appeon server and run it just like a Win32 or native desktop application. If you make any changes to the Appeon server or you redeploy the Appeon web application to the Appeon server, these changes are dynamically picked up the next time you run the application. Let's have a look at the IWA Benefits. As you can see here, it can be installed as a desktop application on the native Windows client and can run without the use of a web browser. The deployment of your Appeon web application through this mechanism should be more straightforward and reliable. You no longer require the configuration of the Appeon web browser plugin. It's easier to launch, as on the client's machine, you can have a standard shortcut to run the IWA Runner and launch the appropriate Appeon web application, just like a Win32. Response times are similar to the Appeon web browser model, but IWA's model will consume less client-side memory. And of course, the big bonus is IWA applications, just like the web browser-based model, will always stay up to date if there are any changes in the deployment to the Appeon server. So let's start using the installable web application. What we need to do first is launch the PowerBuilder integrated development environment. And I would suggest, first of all, also having a look at the Appeon help file. So let's do this. On my desktop here, I have PowerBuilder, and I also have the Appeon help running. So when you first run the Appeon PowerBuilder 2016 help, and there's the welcome screen, I would focus and suggest that you go down to the New Features Guide, Web-Specific New Features, Installable Web Applications. And you can see here that there's a note about this being a new feature and a link to the section that describes this IWA feature. And then you can actually go in here and read the detailed information. And you may find some interesting hints and tips and techniques that may not be covered in this particular video. So I would certainly recommend that you read the Appeon help file first before building your first IWA application. First thing we need to do is we need to launch the Appeon configuration tool from the PowerBuilder IDE using this icon here, and then complete the new IWA properties that were added in the Appeon 2016 product. So let's do that now. So returning back to PowerBuilder, we're going to have a look at this lower toolbar here, which represents the Appeon toolset in the Appeon Developer. We need to go to Configure, and we'll need to configure the order entry application so that it runs correctly as an IWA application. Before I do that, I'll actually just run the application natively by hitting the blue jogger. And we can see here that it comes to a splash screen followed by a login screen and a welcome. This is a multilingual application. If the user ID is DBA and the password, of course, is SQL because it's a SQL Anywhere database. And logging into the application here, you can see that we can actually go ahead and look at customers. We can drill down to a specific customer. We can look at orders, then products. We can look at the details of that. You see drop-down data windows. We can see graphs running as well. So this application here runs standard menus at the top, pull down menus, and standard toolbars because it is a multiple document application. And it can launch external resources, for example, like the calculator here in Windows 10. So I'm just going to exit that because we're going to make sure that when we deploy the IWA application, that these look and feel is exactly the same as we expected here in the Win32. So returning back to the order entry application, that the main thing is to make sure that it is a universal application or a web-based application. And if we go here and edit the profile, you can see here there are 17 PowerBuilder libraries in this particular application. And we look at the runtime settings, there's been a new area added called the Installable Web Application, or IWA App Settings. Press this command button now, and you'll see here that we can enter a name for the application, in this case order entry. We can browse for an icon that's going to actually be residing on the user's desktop client machine. So if I hit browse here, it'll take me here and let me choose an appropriate file type, in this case an icon file, ICO. You can see from this note here that the ICO should be formatted in 16 by 16, 48 by 48, or 256 by 256 pixels for optimum resolution. We can put in a description, IWA application for order entry, for example. And I hit OK, and then I would hit OK again. And that's it. We're now configured as far as deployment is concerned. So let's have a look back at our slides here. We've launched the Appeon configuration tool. We've filled in the new IWA properties, and our application is deployed as a universal, or I can choose a web-based one as well, which I can set in the configuration tool. Universal means both web and mobile. So I'm okay to go here. So all I need to do is basically go and deploy that, and Appeon 2016 will create an install package for both my application and a wrapper for the IWA Runner that we saw in that earlier diagram. So returning back here to PowerBuilder, we'll go to the deployment tool, order entry, and we'll hit next. And you can see here at this point, there are no errors and there are no warnings. And so what I'll do here at this point, I'll just hit finish. And I'll just hit run. And what we're going to do here is we're actually going to run this as a web application. First of all, and you can see here that the deployed application running inside the web browser again looks and feels exactly like the Win32 application. We can log in. Again, we can select customers, and we can drill down and look at them. We can look at different products. We can look at the details, drop-down lists. And again, everything works exactly the same. Pull down menus, toolbars. So I'm just going to exit that. Now let's have a look at our to-do list here. So at this point, that we do actually have an install package, and the application can be run in the web browser. However, we can now install it as an IWA application. So how do I actually do that? So what we need to do here is we need to use your web browser to be able to do that and install it to the desktop. So in this case, I'm going to launch the Microsoft Edge web browser under Windows 10. And I'm going to type in localhost. The application was deployed as order entry, but you'll see here that there is another web page has been created in the Appeon/IIS web application server called IWA Runner .html. If I select that and press enter, you'll see here installing IWA application, and it's going to download and install for you. So down below you can see here all I need to do here is select run to run the Appeon IWA Runner install. That's going to come and say I need to run this, of course, in administrator mode, and I'm ready to install the application. And I hit install just like I'd run a regular setup.exe. And there we go. And I'll hit finish. Now, at this point, it automatically loads the application just to make sure that everything is working fine. It's actually running it as an IWA application. It doesn't seem obvious because we still see the web browser in the background. So at this point, I'm just going to cancel the application. I'm going to close the web browser. And we're going to actually have a look at my desktop. And you can see here that the order entry shortcut has been created using the icon that I specified. And if we look at the properties of this, we can see here that we do have a shortcut. It's going to pick up if I look along here, it's actually going to run the IWA Runner, and it's going to pick up the application by launching the runner and then pointing it to where the application really is, which means now that the IWA Runner is going to pull that application and run it and load it and run it in the client memory. So if I double click here, order entry shortcut, now you can see here that we do have a standard order entry development application. We have a welcome screen. We have the login screen. We now log into the database. Can we access the same customers? Absolutely. Can we drill down to a customer like we did before? Absolutely. We can look at products. We can look at the details. We can see drop-down data windows from here. If you use the right-hand mouse button, for example, selecting zoom, we can zoom the data in and out. If I go here to sales and look at the graph, it looks exactly the same. If I was to go here and launch the calculator, for example, it still launches the Windows 10 calculator just like the Win32 did or just like the web browser did. If I try and close the application, the close query runs and I can prevent the application from closing, or again, I can say go ahead and the close query is acknowledged. So that's all there is to installing the application to your desktop. It creates a shortcut. You can run it from the start programs or you can run it from the shortcut. That runs the IWA Runner, which then links to the Appeon server and pulls your application into the working environment. What happens if you make a change? Well, let's have a look at that. Let's go back to the PowerBuilder development environment, bring up my to-do list here, which I have the login screen marked in my to-do list. And all I want to do here is just show you that changes are dynamic. So if I went in here and I looked at the properties of this window, we would see that it's a button face, and I could change that maybe to a blue of some kind, just to show you that there is a visible change. We will then launch the deployment tool, and running the deployment, you'll see here it redeploys the login window. Everything still looks okay, no errors, no warnings, and I'll select finish. And we'll put PowerBuilder away. And we'll go back to the desktop where we see the order entry IWA desktop shortcut. Double clicking this, again it launches the application. It runs just like a Win32 application. However, you can see behind here the login screen has that light blue setting of the background color that I just set. Just to show you that the fact that it goes over to the Appeon server and pulls in the latest executable code every time you run that shortcut. So that means if you've deployed this to thousands of users' Windows desktops, then everybody within a couple of seconds of deploying that restarts the application will see this light blue background with no changes required, no redeployment that is. So I'm just going to cancel out of this application and we'll return back to our slide deck. So that everything looks good. We can redeploy the application. We see that the IWA shortcut in the desktop automatically picks up the latest changes. So where does my application reside, and how do I install that IWA application? Well, the application actually resides within the temporary workspace of your browser. So it's sort of behind the scenes that runs sort of like a Appeon web application, because it runs in the temporary work area of your browser, whatever that's defined to in your internet settings. However, if sometimes when you're finished with that application, how do I uninstall it from the user's desktop? So to do that, what you need to do is you need to launch the control panel and go to Programs and Features. And you'll see here that there is an IWA Runner has been installed for my application that I just deployed. If I want to get rid of that, I'll use the right-hand mouse button and choose Uninstall. And it'll come back and say, are you sure you want to get rid of IWA and its related applications? And say yes. And there it is. It's gone. It will disappear here from the Programs and Features. And again, if we return back to our desktop, we'll see here that that shortcut is gone altogether. So that's all there is to uninstalling an IWA application using the control panel. So congratulations. You have now successfully built and deployed an installable web application. Thanks for watching.